The courtroom went silent the second Karen spat those two words at Judge Judy. "You're trash." Everyone waited for the explosion, the fury, the ejection from court. But what happened next was far more devastating. Because Judge Judy didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. What she did instead destroyed Karen so completely that by the end, Karen was begging, literally begging, for mercy that would never come. And it all started with a single photograph Karen claimed didn't exist. What happened in those final moments, when Judge Judy read Karen's own words out loud, left the entire courtroom gasping. But before we dive in, tell me, where are you watching from? Don't forget the subscribe button. The camera would have lingered on Judge Judy's face, unmoving, unreadable, a quiet surface hiding a storm. The overhead lights hummed faintly, casting a flat white glow across her bench, sharpening the lines of her expression into something colder, steadier. Karen leaned back in her chair with a tight, victorious smirk, as if she had struck the match and now wanted to watch the whole place burn. But Judy did not react. Not with anger, not with outrage, not even with the faintest twitch of emotion. Her silence alone shifted the entire temperature of the room. Across the aisle, Mia sat small, clutching a folder that looked like it had been opened and closed too many times over too many nights. The edges were soft, the papers inside bent from constant handling. She pressed it against her chest like armor, quiet armor, but still armor, and tried not to look at Karen. Karen noticed anyway. "Oh, relax," Karen muttered loudly enough for everyone to hear. "It is not my fault she brought her personal drama in here. Maybe if she stopped whining long enough to take responsibility, this would be done already." Mia's fingers tightened around the folder. Judge Judy's eyes lifted. A single shift of her gaze felt like the whole courtroom inhaled. Her voice came low, steady. "We will begin," she said, "and we will begin without commentary." Karen rolled her eyes, letting the chair squeak as she leaned forward. "I'm just saying." "You have said enough," Judy replied, not raising her voice, not moving quickly, only turning a single page in the file before her. "More than enough." Karen's smirk loosened just slightly. Judy's tone stayed calm, almost gentle, but the calmness was razor-edged. "Ms. Larson," she said, eyes fixed on Karen, "you believe you understand this case?" "I do," Karen shot back. "She is accusing me of things she cannot prove. I did nothing wrong." Judy let a beat of silence stretch, long enough to draw the room's pulse into one slow rhythm. "Then let us start with something simple," she said. "Your first statement." Karen straightened up, proud, chin raised. "Gladly." Judy read the line aloud. "You said you provided Mia with an estimate that was verbal only and that no written document exists." "That is correct." Judy closed the file, slowly, deliberately. The sound of the folder shutting echoed like a small verdict. "And yet," Judy said, her voice tightening in only the slightest, most dangerous way, "when I asked the clerk to pull records from your business, something interesting appeared." Karen blinked. Her confidence flickered. The camera would move in on Judy's hands as she lifted a paper, not revealing it yet, only letting Karen see the edge of something she was not prepared for. Judy leaned forward. "Would you like to try that answer again, before I show the court what you forgot?" The shift happened the moment Judy lifted that single sheet of paper. Karen's confidence, once loud enough to fill the room, wavered, just a flicker, subtle but visible. She tried to catch it, reshape it, force it back into the smirk she wore like armor, but the crack had already formed. "Try what answer again?" she asked, laughing too brightly, too fast. "I told you. There is no written estimate. None. This is ridiculous." Her voice was sharp, but her hands betrayed her, fingers tapping against the table in uneven, frantic beats. The camera would cut to a close-up, manicured nails drumming with the rhythm of a lie trying to keep itself alive. Judge Judy did not open the paper yet. She just watched Karen. The silence pressed against the walls. Across from them, Mia lowered her eyes, drawing a shaky breath. She held the folder tightly against her lap, not trusting her voice to stay steady if she spoke. But her stillness, her quiet, made Karen louder by contrast. Karen leaned forward again, theatrically spreading her hands. "Look, I know how this works. She," Karen jabbed a finger toward Mia, "got confused, emotional. People like her always think paperwork magically appears if they cry long enough. Judy's head tilted slightly, a tiny gesture, a warning. People like her? Judy asked softly. Well, you know, Karen continued, oblivious to the danger in front of her. The dramatic type, the overreactors. If she lost a paper, that's not my problem. Mia exhaled, a small trembling sound she could not stop. She did not look up, but the camera would. It would linger on her face, the tightness around her eyes, the way humiliation sat heavy in her throat. Judge Judy turned to her. Ms. Parker, did you misplace any documents? No, Your Honor, Mia whispered. I kept everything, every paper she ever gave me. Karen scoffed. What papers? There are none. Judy finally lifted her hand, holding the sheet just high enough for Karen to see the corner. So, Judy asked, her voice calm and unbelievably steady, you are absolutely certain this does not exist? Karen tried to laugh again, but this time the sound cracked. I mean, well, maybe. Maybe she forged something, who knows? People forge things all the time. That sentence dropped like metal on concrete. The courtroom went still. Judy's eyebrows lifted, barely. You are accusing the plaintiff of forgery. I am saying she is desperate, Karen snapped. She is making things up to get money out of me. She cannot prove anything. She has nothing. Judy slid the paper forward, letting it glide across the desk toward Karen with almost theatrical slowness. Interesting, Judy murmured, considering your signature is on it. Karen's face went pale enough to drain the color from the room. Her mouth opened, once, twice, but no sound emerged. Behind her, even the bailiff shifted, as if the truth itself had sucked all the oxygen from the air. Karen finally whispered, That cannot be mine. Judy leaned back, folding her hands. Then explain why your signature is on it. Karen stared at the document as if it were a trap laid in the middle of the courtroom floor. Her lips moved, forming silent, broken syllables. The smirk she had worn since the moment she walked in had dissolved completely. The room felt tighter now, the air heavier, like everyone sensed the balance shifting. Judge Judy did not speak. She let the silence do the confronting for her. Karen finally managed a thin, trembling whisper. That is not my signature. It cannot be. But the denial rang hollow. The camera would shift to Mia. Her shoulders were pulled inward, not in defensiveness, but in a kind of exhausted truth. She had carried this weight alone for weeks, and now, finally, someone else was holding it with her. Judy turned her attention to Mia. Ms. Parker, she said with measured calm, tell me what happened when you asked Ms. Larson for a written estimate. Mia swallowed, then lifted her eyes. They were glossy but controlled, the way someone looks when they have rehearsed their pain in silence long enough to say it without breaking. She told me she does not do written estimates, Mia said softly. She said it was wasteful. She said I should trust her. Karen shot her a glare. Oh, give me a break. Do not speak. Judy's voice cut through the air, sharp and final. Karen's mouth snapped shut. Mia continued, fingers clutching the folder tighter. But I insisted. I told her my budget was tight. I told her I needed something in writing before I agreed to anything. And this, Judy asked, lifting the page just slightly, is what she gave you? Mia nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Karen let out a short, panicked laugh. She is lying. I would never write something like that. I never gave her anything. I never signed anything. Judy glanced at her. Ms. Larson, every time you deny something, the plaintiff looks more credible. The words hit Karen like cold water. Her voice trembled with anger, not conviction. This is insane. You cannot possibly believe her over me. The camera would zoom in on Karen's hands, shaking now, her fingers pressing marks into the table as she tried to ground herself. She looked anywhere but at the document. Mia hesitated, then slowly opened the worn folder on her lap. A stack of neatly kept papers rested inside, corners curled from stress, not carelessness. One photo slid loose and drifted forward onto the desk. The moment it landed, the atmosphere snapped. The courtroom leaned in, not physically, but emotionally, as if the truth inside that image had sent a ripple through the room. Judy reached for it, her eyes narrowed, her expression tightening with a seriousness the room had not yet seen. Karen's face drained of color. Mia's breath caught, The camera would linger on the photo just long enough to show Karen in a place she claimed she had never been, smiling. Judy looked up slowly, like someone realizing the last piece of a puzzle had just clicked. "We need to discuss this," she said, her voice low, steady, impossible to outrun. "Now." The photo lay between them like a piece of truth no one could unsee. Not dramatic, not staged, just a simple shot, casual, almost careless, but its quiet clarity carried more weight than any accusation Mia could have spoken. Karen stared at it without blinking, as if refusing to look might erase what everyone else already saw. Judge Judy lifted the photo with 2 fingers, holding it at an angle where the overhead lights cast a pale glow across its glossy surface. The camera would zoom in slowly, framing the frozen moment, Karen standing beside Mia's damaged car, smiling, her hand resting casually on the dent she later swore she never inspected. Judy's voice came soft but edged like sharpened glass. "This is you." Karen's throat bobbed once. That picture is taken out of context." "Out of context," Judy repeated, her eyes narrowing, "from an event you claim you were not present for." Karen opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. Someone must have taken it without my permission. I do not remember posing. I take a lot of pictures." Judy lowered the photo slightly, just enough for Karen to meet her eyes. "You take a lot of pictures with damaged vehicles belonging to clients you say you never met?" Karen's facade cracked further. A small, tight shake of her head betrayed panic she was trying desperately to hide. Mia shifted in her seat, her fingers trembling as she gathered the courage to speak. "Your Honor, she took that picture herself. She told me she needed it for documentation. She even laughed about how bad the dent was." Karen exploded. "That is a lie. I never—" "Stop." Judy's voice sliced cleanly through the air. The room stilled. "The more you interrupt," Judy said, leaning forward slightly, "the more you tell me you are afraid of what comes next." Karen shook her head violently. "I'm not afraid. I'm frustrated. This is ridiculous. That picture means nothing." Judy turned her gaze to the photo again, studying it with unsettling calm. "Photographs rarely lie, Ms. Larson. People do. And the person smiling in this picture looks nothing like someone who was nowhere near the scene." The smirk Karen had worn earlier was long gone. In its place was a stiff, nervous half-grimace, something between a frown and the remnants of false confidence. The courtroom seemed to shrink around her. Mia watched, hands trembling in her lap. She did not smile at Karen's unraveling. She did not relish the moment. Instead, she looked exhausted, like the truth was heavy even when it finally surfaced. Judge Judy set the photo down with deliberate precision. The soft slap of it hitting the desk echoed more loudly than any gavel strike. "Ms. Larson," she said quietly, "I want you to explain why you appear so comfortable, so casual, so familiar in a place you have repeatedly insisted you were not." Karen swallowed hard. It must have been a misunderstanding." Judy arched one eyebrow. "A misunderstanding that includes you smiling at a scene you deny visiting?" Karen's silence answered for her. Judy leaned back, folding her arms, letting the weight of the moment sink into every corner of the room. Then she asked the question that crushed the last of Karen's false certainty. "Why are you smiling in this photo while claiming you were nowhere near the scene?" Karen's breath hitched, barely, but enough to expose the panic she could no longer hide. Her smile, the smug one she wore like a shield since walking in, did not return. It could not. The first crack had already fractured the entire surface. Judge Judy did not move. She did not lean forward, did not raise her voice, did not soften her tone. She simply waited. And silence, Judy's silence, did what no accusation ever could. Karen finally spoke, her words stumbling out in pieces. I was only there for a moment. It was not what she's making it look like." Mia looked down, not in victory, but in the fragile relief of finally being believed. Judy's voice came slow and surgical. "You were there, Ms. Larson. Let us start by being honest about that." Karen shook her head. "I was not there. I mean, yes, maybe I stopped by, but not for the appointment she's talking about. I did not inspect anything. I did not offer anything. It was just a quick look." Judy lifted the photo again and tapped the image with one finger. Your hand is on the damage. Karen's eyes flicked to the photo, then away. I was pointing at it. That does not mean I inspected it. You were smiling, Judy said. That is not a crime. No, Judy replied, her tone sharpening, but lying is certainly a problem. Karen looked around, seeking support from faces that had already turned cold. The audience watched quietly, some with eyebrows raised, some with lips pressed into thin, doubtful lines. Even the bailiff stood more still than before, his gaze fixed on Karen like he had seen this unraveling 100 times. Mia's voice came soft but firm. You told me the damage was easy to fix. You told me you would give me a printed estimate later that afternoon. Karen's head snapped toward her. I never said that, Judy intervened like a blade sliding between them. Ms. Larson, every denial you offer contradicts something already proven. If you want to salvage even a shred of credibility, now is the time. Karen's breathing grew shallow, chest rising and falling too quickly. Her hands twitched against the table, tapping nervously as if she could tap herself back into control. I misremembered, she muttered. That is convenient, Judy replied, but let us continue. She opened the folder Mia had brought, turning pages with quiet precision, each movement amplifying the tension. The courtroom felt like it was holding a collective breath. You claimed, Judy said, that Ms. Parker exaggerated costs, that she misunderstood your rates, that she expected work for free. Karen nodded rapidly. Exactly. She is twisting everything. And yet, Judy cut in, lifting a new sheet, this document shows a price quote so inflated that it exceeds the legal limit threefold. Karen froze. Judy's eyes locked onto hers. Did you think no one would notice? Karen's mouth opened, but nothing emerged. The fear in her eyes had a new shade, darker, deeper, tinged with the dawning realization that she had run out of exits. Mia watched quietly, her fingers unclenching from the folder at last. Judy placed one hand on the next page. Slow, deliberate, a gesture that made the entire courtroom lean in. Ms. Larson, she said, if I open the next page in this file, your story collapses. She paused. Should I continue? The courtroom did not breathe when Judge Judy lifted her hand from the folder. It was the kind of stillness that felt alive, like the air itself was waiting to see which truth would surface next. Karen watched Judy's fingers hover above the next page with widening eyes. Her bravado, once loud and glittering, had dulled into something brittle, something afraid. Her shoulders, once squared in arrogant confidence, now slumped forward as if the room's weight had settled on her spine. Judy opened the page. The sound, just paper sliding across paper, echoed louder than Karen's earlier insult ever had. A printed estimate stared up from the desk, numbers bold and unmistakable. 3 times the legal limit, the kind of pricing that did not happen by mistake. Karen's face drained. That is not mine. Judy did not even look at her. Ms. Parker, she said, turning to Mia. When did you receive this? Mia's voice shook, but she pushed through. The same day I met her. She told me it was standard. She said everyone pays that amount. I believed her. Karen slammed her hand against the table. I never said that. Her outburst snapped through the air, but it did not intimidate anyone. Not anymore. Judy's head lifted, her gaze like a scalpel. Do not raise your voice in my courtroom. You are losing credibility faster than I can read. Karen swallowed hard, eyes darting around like a cornered animal searching for an escape route that no longer existed. Judy tapped the estimate sheet. This, Ms. Larson, is fraudulent on its face, triple the legal rate, and that is before we address the second invoice. The second what? The audience shifted, a ripple of murmurs rising. Karen's breath stuttered. There is no second invoice. Mia clutched her folder. She sent it to me 2 days later when I questioned the first. It had different numbers, different dates. She said the first price was a misunderstanding. Judy's eyes sharpened. A misunderstanding that just happened to benefit you financially? Karen shook her head violently. No, I was adjusting it to help her. I was trying to give her a break. Mia's voice broke. You called it a discount, but the second invoice was even higher. The words hung there, soft but devastating. Karen's jaw dropped. That is not... I did not... Stop talking, Judy said, her voice low, controlled and unforgiving. Every word you say digs a deeper hole. Karen pressed a trembling hand to her forehead. Her breathing quickened, her composure scattered like loose papers in a storm. Judy flipped another page, one covered in Karen's handwriting. "This," she said, "is your second invoice, deleted from your business records, but retrieved through the court's production request." Karen froze. Not even her eyes moved. The room felt colder now, the fluorescent lights harsh enough to reveal every crack in her facade. Judy leaned forward. "Ms. Larson, were you planning to mention this second invoice? The one you hid?" Karen's lips parted, but the only sound that escaped was a choked whisper. The smirk was gone. What replaced it was not fear exactly, but something more frantic, panic wrapped in denial, trembling beneath the surface. Karen's eyes darted from the document to Judge Judy, then to Mia, then back again, like she could outrun the truth by refusing to stay still long enough to face it. "The second invoice does not exist," Karen blurted, voice cracking as she leaned forward as if proximity alone could make her lie more convincing. "Someone must have forged it, or maybe she made it up to make me look bad." Judy did not even blink. Her tone dropped into a cold, precise quiet. "Ms. Larson, this is your handwriting." Karen shook her head too fast, too hard. No, I do not write like that. That is not my—" Judy slid another sheet forward. "This is the handwriting from your first invoice, and this," she tapped the second one, "matches it perfectly." The camera would move in on Karen's fingers gripping the edge of the table. Her knuckles were pale, the tips of her nails digging into the wood like she needed an anchor before the truth pulled her under. From the corner of the room, a soft rustling came. The audience shifted, sensing the unraveling accelerating. Even the bailiff's stance shifted, subtle but telling, like someone bracing before a predictable collapse. Mia drew a slow breath. Her voice, though quiet, had more steadiness now. "She told me the second invoice was a temporary placeholder, that it was to keep me from going to another shop." Karen snapped toward her. "I never said that. Why are you lying about everything?" Judy's hand lifted, one small gesture, and the room snapped back to silence. "Ms. Larson," she said, her voice low, controlled and impossibly steady, "your panic is showing." Karen blinked rapidly. "I'm not panicking." "Then stop talking," Judy replied, "because every sentence you speak contradicts the last one." Karen's mouth opened, then closed again. Her chest rose and fell too quickly. A sheen of sweat glistened along her hairline beneath the courtroom lights. Judy turned a page in the folder, slow, deliberate, a metronome of looming consequence. "When the court requested your production records, one line item was missing, the second invoice," Karen whispered. "I do not know anything about that." Judy said quietly. "And yet your business software logs show that an invoice dated 2 days after the estimate was manually deleted." She paused. "Deleted from your account, using your login." A ripple moved through the audience, shock in breath, disbelief in widening eyes. Karen's voice squeaked. I am sure there is a reason." Judy cut her off with the softest, sharpest tone. "Yes, there is. And we are about to hear it." Karen's breathing faltered. "I have no reason—" "You do," Judy replied, eyes narrowing. "But you are not going to give it to me." She looked toward the courtroom door. "There is someone else who needs to speak." The bailiff stepped forward instinctively, as if he already knew what came next. Judy nodded once. "Bring him in." The door opened. Someone stepped inside. Karen's face collapsed. The door opened with a slow, weighted creak, one that made every shoulder in the courtroom tense just slightly. Footsteps followed, measured, reluctant, familiar. Karen's posture changed immediately. Her spine stiffened, her eyes widened, her mouth fell open in a tiny, silent gasp, because she knew exactly who was walking in. The technician, mid-30s, uniform neat but worn from long workdays, stepped forward, holding a slim folder against his chest. He avoided Karen's eyes at first, focusing instead on Judge Judy with a mixture of respect and quiet dread. Judy inclined her head. "State your name for the record." "Daniel Reeves, Your Honor." His voice was steady, but his hands gave him away. His thumb kept brushing the folder's edge over and over, as if trying to smooth out guilt lodged beneath his skin. The camera would hold on Karen's face, capturing the instant recognition, the flush of panic rising from her neck to her cheeks like heat flooding upward. She whispered, barely audible, "Why is he here?" Judy heard it anyway. "To clarify your records, since you have been unable to do so." Daniel took a cautious step forward. I was the one who handled the invoicing software for her business." Karen shot up in her seat. "Daniel, do not you dare! Sit," Judy commanded, voice slicing the air. Karen dropped back as if the word itself pulled her down. Daniel exhaled shakily. "A few months ago, Ms. Larson told me to adjust the dates on 2 invoices." He opened the folder and slid out a printed log. "She said it was a routine correction. I did not think too much about it at first." Karen's voice cracked. "That's not true. Daniel, you know that's not true." He flinched, but he did not retract his words. Judy leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Did she instruct you to delete an invoice?" Daniel swallowed. "Yes, Your Honor." A tremor of gasps rustled through the courtroom. Karen shook her head in desperation. "You are lying. Why would you lie for her? She probably paid you." "Stop!" Daniel's voice broke, not from anger, but from shame. "I am not lying. I should have come forward sooner. I was afraid." The room fell into a deep, weighted silence, the kind that tightens the chest. Mia's eyes softened, watching a person caught between guilt and integrity. Karen, however, twisted in her seat, her panic no longer hidden beneath any performance. Her voice trembled with something uglier than fear, desperation. "You do not understand! This is a setup!" she shouted. "Daniel's trying to save himself." "I'm trying to tell the truth," he whispered, eyes down. Judy sat back, folding her hands. "Mr. Reeves, tell the court exactly who gave the order to alter those records." Daniel lifted his eyes, slowly, painfully, until they met Judy's. Then he turned and looked straight at Karen. "She did," he said. The words did not echo, but they might as well have. Every face in the room absorbed them like a blow. Even the fluorescent light seemed to flicker, as if reacting to the weight of what had finally been spoken aloud. Karen stared back at him, stunned, her expression cracking open into raw disbelief. Judy's voice was calm, almost soft. "Thank you. You may step aside." As Daniel lowered his head, the moral axis of the room shifted. Truth had entered, and Karen's world had begun to collapse. Daniel's words had barely settled into the air when Karen lurched forward as if struck. Not physically, emotionally, the kind of impact that breaks something inside a person long before they realize it. She did. 2 simple words, and they shattered the last piece of control she thought she still had. Karen's chair scraped loudly as she pushed up on trembling elbows. "That's a lie. He is lying." Her voice cracked at the edges, frantic, jagged. "Daniel, look at me. Look at me. Tell them you are making this up." Daniel could not even lift his eyes. "I am not," he whispered. Judge Judy watched the interaction without flinching. Her expression remained steady, the calm center of a storm that no longer needed her wind to swirl. The truth was doing the destruction now. Karen stabbed a finger in Daniel's direction. "You are trying to ruin me. You are just covering your own mistakes." Judy raised a hand, just one, and the room fell silent. "Ms. Larson," she said, her tone low and unforgiving. "Sit down." Karen sat. Not because she wanted to, but because the authority in Judy's voice made resistance feel impossible. Her breathing grew shallow. Her fingers knotted together so tightly they turned white. She rocked forward slightly, the panic inside her no longer something she could disguise. Mia stared at her, not with triumph, not with vengeance, but with a kind of stunned sadness. The kind you feel when someone who hurt you is finally forced to face what they have done. Judge Judy shifted her attention back to the file, turning one page with the slow precision of someone revealing the next layer of a truth that is nowhere left to hide. "Ms. Larson," she said, "you told this court that Ms. Parker fabricated invoices. You claimed she forged documents. You insisted these prices were misunderstandings." Karen wiped at her forehead with a trembling hand. They were. "They were not," Judy replied. "Your own employee confirms that you altered dates, manipulated figures, and deleted records. That is not misunderstanding. That is intent." Karen shook her head violently. "I was overwhelmed. I was behind on paperwork. He misunderstood me. I was not trying to—" "I did not mean," Judy interrupted, her voice quiet but surgical. "You were not trying to what exactly? Overcharge her, deceive her, exploit her trust?" Karen froze, her mouth hanging open in a soundless gasp. Her eyes darted toward Mia, then dropped quickly, an instinctive acknowledgement of guilt she could not disguise in time. Mia swallowed, the tremble in her hands returning. "Your Honor, I just wanted a fair estimate. She promised she would not take advantage of me. She said she cared." The phrase hung in the air. She said she cared. The courtroom seemed to shrink around Karen. Even the lights felt harsher, exposing every crack in her voice as she whispered, I did not mean to hurt her. She could not finish. Judge Judy leaned forward slightly. Every word weighted. "Then tell this courtroom why you told your employee to hide dates." Karen blinked rapidly, tears threatening for the first time. Not sympathy tears, not remorse, but fear. Pure fear. She clutched the edge of the desk with shaking hands. "I do not know." But the look in her eyes said otherwise. She did know, and that truth was about to surface. The question hung in the room like a low, vibrating hum. "Why did you tell your employee to hide dates?" Karen's silence was not denial anymore. It was something heavier, something that made her chest rise and fall in uneven, stuttering breaths. The weight of her lie finally had a shape, and it was crushing her. Judge Judy waited. Not impatiently, not aggressively, just waited, because silence in her courtroom was often the loudest truth. Karen finally exhaled one jagged breath. I do not remember." Her voice was small, weak, nothing like the woman who entered the room with sharpness and arrogance polished to a shine. Judy lowered her gaze, unimpressed. "Ms. Larson, memory lapses do not conveniently occur only when evidence surfaces." Karen shook her head. "No, I was overwhelmed. I had too many clients, too much paperwork. Things slipped through, that is all." Daniel, standing to the side, closed his eyes briefly, his expression a mix of regret and resolve. He knew she was lying. The whole room knew it. Mia held her folder lightly now, not gripping it like armor anymore, but resting it on her lap, as if she no longer had to defend herself against the weight of disbelief. Her voice, when she spoke, was soft and trembling with quiet resolve. "She told me everything was fine," Mia whispered. "She said she had my best interest in mind." Karen winced. The words hit her harder than Judy's questions ever could. Judge Judy turned a page in the file, slowly, intentionally. The courtroom leaned into the movement as though the answer to the entire case lived between those sheets. "Ms. Larson," Judy said, eyes scanning the page, "you told Ms. Parker this estimate was standard, that all clients paid this much. Yet these records, your own records, show that no one else was charged anywhere near this rate." Karen swallowed. Her lips trembled. Maybe she needed more work done. Maybe I misunderstood her car's condition." "You seem to misunderstand many things," Judy replied calmly. A small ripple of restrained laughter moved through the audience, not mocking, just startled by the precision of the blow. Karen's face flushed with humiliation. Judy lifted another document. "And then, we have this." Karen's breath hitched. "This," Judy continued, tapping the page, "is your service log. It shows that you never even evaluated Ms. Parker's car on the date you claim you did." Karen shook her head violently. "That cannot be right. I was there." Mia's quiet voice cut in. "I had to call you 3 times. Karen snapped toward her again. No, that is wrong. Stop." Judy's voice iced the air. Karen froze, a trembling hand half raised in protest. Judy leaned forward. "You said earlier that you had no written estimate, that Ms. Parker fabricated documents, but this," she tapped the page again, "is your handwriting." Karen stared down at her own script, the loops and curls unmistakably hers. Her throat tightened, her eyes glistened. She whispered, I did not want to lose another client." Judy arched an eyebrow. "So instead you overcharged her?" Karen covered her mouth with shaking fingers. I thought I could fix it later. I did not mean for it to go this far." Judy reached for another sheet, a page she had not yet shown the courtroom. Her tone softened slightly, but the softness was devastating. "Before I proceed, Ms. Larson," she said, "is there something you want to admit before I read this next statement?" Karen's eyes flicked to the page like a terrified animal sensing a trap closing. "What statement?" she whispered. Judy lifted it between two fingers. "One," she said quietly. "Written in your handwriting." Karen went still. Absolutely still. The paper in Judge Judy's hand looked ordinary, just a single, slightly creased sheet pulled from the depths of the case file. But the moment she held it up, the atmosphere shifted. The fluorescent lights above seemed to dim at the edges, leaving the center of the room sharpened and exposed. Karen watched that page like it carried a detonator. "Ms. Larson," Judy said, her voice steady, "this is a statement written by you, dated 6 weeks before Ms. Parker ever filed her complaint." Karen's pulse was visible in her throat. "I do not know what that is." Judy lowered her gaze, unimpressed. "You will." She placed the confession flat on the bench, adjusting it with careful precision. The paper made a soft whispering sound, one that somehow felt louder than any outburst Karen had thrown all morning. Then Judy began to read. "I need the money. I'm behind. I will make it look legitimate. She will never know." The courtroom froze. Karen's face crumpled in on itself, her mouth opening in a silent gasp, eyes flooding with shock, not just at the words, but at the fact they had finally escaped the dark corner she left them in. That is not," her voice cracked. "I did not mean that literally." Judy's head lifted slowly. "You wrote it. You signed it." Karen pressed trembling hands to her temples. It was a draft, a private note. I was venting. I would never." Daniel looked away, guilt twisting across his features. Mia's hands covered her mouth, her breath catching as pieces of Karen's behavior suddenly aligned with devastating clarity. Judy read another line. "She trusts me. Everyone trusts me when I talk sweet. I can fix my debt this way." It was not the words alone. They were damaging enough. It was the handwriting. Uneven strokes, pressure marks, emotion captured in ink. This was not a business memo. It was the inner voice Karen never thought would see daylight. Karen's voice trembled on the edge of breaking. "I did not mean it. I was desperate. You do not understand." "No," Judy said, leaning forward slightly. "I understand more than you think." Karen's head jerked up. Judy continued, her tone calm but cutting. "You feel out of control. You feel cornered. And when you feel cornered, you manipulate. You lie. You take advantage of the people who trust you." Karen burst into tears, not delicate tears, not controlled emotion, but the kind of raw, messy crying that comes from fear cracking wide open. "I was drowning," she whispered. I owed people money. I could not pay rent. The shop was falling apart. My sister stopped helping me because I hurt her too. I needed one break." The mention of her sister caught the room off guard. Even Mia looked up, startled. Judy's eyes narrowed, sensing something deeper, something older than this case. "Your sister?" Karen clamped her hand over her mouth, realizing what she had revealed. Judy pressed gently, but with purpose. "What did you do to her?" Karen shook her head, sobs choking each breath. I did not mean to hurt her either." The courtroom fell utterly silent. Even the air felt still. Karen's voice was a whisper, unraveling at the edges. "I used her money, the way I used Mia's trust, and she stopped talking to me. I just wanted to feel in control again. I just wanted to fix things. I never wanted it to go this far." Her confession wasn't loud, but its emotional force rippled through the room like a quiet earthquake. The arrogance she strutted in with was gone. The defensiveness was gone. The deflection, the smirks, the insults. Gone. In their place, a woman collapsing beneath the truth she built herself. Judge Judy let 3 seconds of silence pass, each one heavy, deliberate. Then she asked in a voice so calm it chilled everyone, "Karen, why does this confession say you needed the money because you hurt someone close to you?" Karen's breath caught. Her eyes widened. Her entire body seemed to tighten around a truth she had never planned to reveal. Because this lie, this case, was not the beginning. It was the continuation of a pattern finally exposed. The question landed like a pin dropped in a cathedral, small, soft, but echoing louder than anything that came before it. Karen stared at Judge Judy with wide, terrified eyes, as if the answer trapped in her throat might swallow her whole if she dared let it out. Her lips parted. Nothing came. She tried again, still nothing. The courtroom waited, frozen in a suspended breath. Finally, with a trembling inhale, Karen whispered, "It was my sister." The words barely made it past her lips. She folded in on herself, shoulders curling inward, as though naming the person she hurt was more painful than any evidence Judy had confronted her with. Judy's tone softened. Not gentle, not sympathetic, but quieter, like she understood the emotional terrain Karen had just stepped onto. "Tell me what happened." Karen shook her head, tears dripping down her cheeks. I never meant for any of this to come out." "Truth has a way of doing that," Judy replied calmly. "Now speak." Karen wiped her face with the back of her trembling hand. "My sister lent me money, thousands. She trusted me because she always did. I told her I'd pay it back in a month." Her voice cracked. "I didn't." Mia watched with wide, unsure eyes. Caught between anger and empathy, her heart pulled in both directions. Karen continued, each sentence clawing its way out of her chest. "I kept lying, told her I was getting the shop back on track, told her business was improving, but it wasn't. I was sinking, and she found out I was using the money for personal things, things I didn't need, things I bought just to feel in control, just to feel important." The confession washed across the courtroom like a slow, painful tide. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, the guilt in his posture deepening. Mia looked down at her hands, seeing her own pain mirrored in someone else's family. Karen's voice grew softer with every word. "She stopped talking to me, blocked my number, said she was done with my excuses, and she swallowed hard. I panicked. I needed money fast. I needed to prove I wasn't a complete failure. So when Mia walked into my shop, I saw an opportunity." A sharp inhale rippled through the gallery. Karen squeezed her eyes shut as if bracing for impact. "I knew she trusted me. She reminded me of my sister, too trusting, too kind. I thought if I charged her extra, if I manipulated it just a little, I could fix my debt. I just needed a little more time before everything fell apart." She covered her face with trembling hands. "I wasn't trying to ruin her. I just didn't know how to stop lying." Judge Judy watched her quietly, eyes steady, expression unreadable. But her silence was not cold. It was reflective, measured, human. Mia's voice broke through the stillness, soft but resonant. "I understand being desperate," she said, her voice trembling. "I really do." She paused, letting the words settle. "But you didn't have to lie to me. You didn't have to take advantage of me." Karen sobbed harder. I know I didn't. I didn't know how to admit I'd messed up my whole life." Judy leaned forward slightly, voice controlled and precise. "Ms. Larson, accountability does not destroy people. Lies do, manipulation does, exploiting others does. You could have asked for help. Instead, you chose deceit." Karen nodded weakly, wiping her eyes. "I do not know how to fix any of this." For the first time since she entered the courtroom, she wasn't fighting, wasn't deflecting, wasn't performing. She was simply broken open, and the truth, raw, painful, undeniable, finally filled the room. The air in the courtroom shifted, subtle but unmistakable. Karen's tears still clung to her cheeks, but the frantic desperation had quieted into something hollow, something stripped, something that came only after truth had wrung a person completely dry. Judge Judy let the silence breathe for several long seconds, not to punish, not to intimidate, but to let the weight of Karen's admission settle into the bones of everyone present. Then, with steady composure, she spoke. "Ms. Larson, fixing this begins with the truth, nothing else." Karen lifted her head slowly, eyes red, lashes wet, shoulders pulled inward like she was trying to make herself smaller than her mistakes. "I told you the truth, all of it." "Not all," Judy replied, voice calm but edged with steel. "You told us your sister stopped speaking to you. You told us you were drowning in debt. You told us you wanted to feel in control. But what you did to Ms. Parker?" Judy tapped the file gently. "That wasn't desperation. That was predation." Karen flinched. The word hit her like a physical blow. Mia's eyes shifted downward, her fingers brushing the corner of her folder, a gesture soft enough to show compassion, but fragile enough to reveal her lingering hurt. Karen swallowed hard. "I wasn't trying to prey on her. I swear. I just saw someone who trusted me, and And you exploited her, Judy finished, the words delivered with the precision of a judge who has heard every excuse in the world and still refuses to dilute accountability. You used her sincerity the same way you used your sister's. Karen's shoulders trembled. I didn't think. I acted out of fear. Fear does not excuse deception, Judy said. Fear does not excuse altering invoices, lying about your presence, falsifying dates, or manipulating someone who simply asked for help. Karen nodded, jaw quivering. I know, I was wrong. I was selfish. I didn't want to feel like a failure again. Judy's voice softened, not warm, but grounded. Feeling like a failure is not the same as becoming one, but when you take shortcuts, when you lie, deceive, manipulate, you carve that identity for yourself. Daniel, still standing to the side, lowered his eyes. His own guilt sat heavily in his posture, but Judy spared him for now. Karen was the center of this reckoning. Mia's voice broke the tension with a fragile honesty. You didn't have to hurt me to fix your life. She hesitated, breath hitching. And I never wanted to see you like this. Karen's head snapped up in surprise, because Mia wasn't cruel, wasn't vindictive, wasn't celebrating her collapse. That reality seemed to land harder than any evidence. Judy nodded once, acknowledging Mia's humanity. Then she turned back to Karen with the gaze of a woman who has spent decades separating truth from performance. Ms. Larson, she said, her tone calm but firm, there is one more detail we need to confront before I issue my ruling. Karen's eyes widened, exhausted eyes, frightened eyes, waiting for the next blow she absolutely knew she deserved. Judy slid a final page from the folder, one the courtroom had not yet seen. You may think the worst has been revealed, Judy said, setting the page down with surgical precision, but this matters more than you realize. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Mia stiffened. Daniel swallowed nervously. Even the bailiff shifted his stance. Karen stared at the page like it was the edge of her own undoing. Judy tapped it once. Your intent, Ms. Larson. This is where we face it completely. Karen's breath hitched. A tremor passed through her body, and the room braced, every person sensing that whatever was coming next would change everything. Judge Judy rested her fingertips on the final page. The paper, lying flat and pristine against the bench, so deceptively simple for something capable of detonating the last illusion Karen had been clinging to. Karen's breath came shallow, uneven, the way someone breathes when they know the truth is about to land with the force of judgment itself. Ms. Larson, Judy said quietly, what I'm about to read. You know exactly what it is. Karen shook her head instinctively, but her eyes betrayed her. They were already brimming with dread. Mia clasped her hands in her lap, bracing. Daniel shifted, shoulders drawn tight. The gallery fell into that eerie, anticipatory stillness that only appears right before the deepest cut. Judy lifted the page. 2 days after Ms. Parker questioned your charges, she said, you left her a voicemail. Karen's face drained entirely. No, please, Judy continued, utterly unmoved. You told her she was naive, that she wouldn't survive in the real world, and Karen covered her ears. Stop, please don't. Judy read anyway, voice unwavering. People like you always lose. I'm doing you a favor, sweetheart. A gasp rippled across the courtroom, sharp, horrified, collective. Mia's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes filled instantly, not with anger, but hurt. Deep, human hurt. Her shoulders caved inward as if someone had reached inside her chest and pressed on an old bruise. Karen sobbed into her palms. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean any of it. I was angry. I was scared. Judy set the voicemail transcript down with quiet precision, her gaze steady as stone. You mocked her. You belittled her. And you did it in private because you believed your power was secure. That's not desperation, Ms. Larson. That's cruelty. Karen's trembling intensified, her breath hitching in panicked waves. I was falling apart. I said awful things. I wasn't thinking. That is the problem, Judy replied. You weren't thinking about her at all. Mia wiped her cheek with the back of her hand, tears streaking her face. She didn't try to hide them. She didn't need to. The room wasn't looking at her with judgment, only admiration for her strength in the storm. Judy leaned forward slightly, voice lowering into something cold and resonant. You exploited her trust, then ridiculed her behind her back. You told yourself she was weak, that she deserved it, that hurting her wasn't your fault. Karen crumpled further, folding into herself like a collapsing structure. I didn't mean to be cruel, she whispered. I was angry at myself. And she was just there. And so you chose her as the target, Judy finished. A hush fell. Not the silence of suspense, the silence of truth settling into every corner of a room that now saw Karen fully, stripped of excuses, stripped of bravado, stripped down to the raw core of her choices. Judy lifted the gavel slightly, not striking, not yet, just raising it. A gesture that told the entire courtroom they were one breath away from consequence. Her voice came measured, final, heavy with the promise of resolution. This ruling, she said, will not be gentle. Karen's head snapped up, tears streaking down her face, breath shaking. Mia clutched her folder, eyes fixed on the judge, waiting, finally, after everything, for justice to land. The entire courtroom leaned forward, the raised gavel hung in the air, not as a weapon, not as punishment, but as the final punctuation mark on a story built from lies, fear, and painful truth. Every person in the courtroom felt the gravity of it. Even the overhead lights seemed to still, their hum fading into the background as Judge Judy lowered the gavel to the bench. Not striking, not yet, just anchoring the moment. Ms. Larson, she began, her voice measured and steady, you built this entire situation by confusing manipulation with survival, by confusing control with competence, by confusing cruelty with strength. Karen's breathing was jagged, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The arrogance she entered with was long gone. The fury had drained from her body. What remained was something quieter, more fragile, exhaustion and understanding wrapped into a single hollow expression. Judy continued. You lied to the plaintiff, you overcharged her knowingly, you altered records to protect your lies, and when confronted, you tried to discredit her reputation instead of confronting your own behavior. Mia sat perfectly still, holding her worn folder against her chest, not in fear anymore, but in a quiet, almost reverent relief, a release of breath that had been held far too long. Judge Judy turned to her. Ms. Parker, you showed remarkable composure and honesty despite the emotional weight of what happened to you. You deserve more than this court can give you, but you will receive justice today. Mia's eyes welled, but she blinked back the tears with dignity. Karen's lips trembled. Your Honor, I'm so sorry, I really am. I believe you're sorry now, Judy replied. But remorse that arrives only when consequences due is not the same as accountability. Karen lowered her gaze. Judy straightened a stack of papers on her bench, the motion crisp and final. Then she lifted her chin and delivered the ruling with clarity that filled every corner of the room. This court orders full restitution to Ms. Parker. Karen closed her eyes, a shaky exhale escaping her. Additionally, Judy continued, you will reimburse her for all associated costs she incurred trying to fix the mess you created. Karen nodded weakly. And finally, Judy added, leaning forward, your conduct will be formally referred to the appropriate oversight and licensing authorities for review. A ripple went through the audience, sharp, quick. Karen's face crumpled, not in resistance, not in denial, in acceptance. The realization that the damage she caused had caught up to her completely. I understand, she whispered, her voice thin. Mia let out a slow, trembling breath, not triumphant, never triumphant, but relieved, a weight easing off her chest. Judge Judy set her pen down. Ms. Parker, you may move forward knowing you were heard, believed, and vindicated. Mia nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. Thank you, Your Honor. Judy turned her gaze back to Karen one last time. Ms. Larson, your choices led you here, but what you do next will determine whether this moment becomes the end of you or the beginning of change. Karen swallowed hard, eyes pooling again. I'll try. I have to try. Judy didn't nod, didn't soften. She simply spoke the truth, clean, sharp, and resonant. Respect is earned by truth, and today, truth did what arrogance could not. The gavel struck once, firm, echoing, decisive.